During the distribution of my late husband's estate, after 10 years of taking care of everything on my own, my son handed over all the assets to my daughter-in-law, Jessica. She was the spoiled one, the one who had appeared just 2 months before the wedding. The living room is packed with people, relatives I have not seen in years, cousins who showed up the minute they found out there was money to be split, nosy neighbors disguised as supportive friends. They are all sitting in a circle around the large dining room table, that dark mahogany table where my husband and I ate breakfast together for decades. Michael is standing at the head of the table, my son. He is wearing a gray suit that is too tight across the shoulders, sweating even though the ceiling fan is spinning at maximum speed. Right next to him, stuck to him like a perfumed shadow, is her, Jessica, my daughter-in-law, the woman who appeared just 2 months ago in my son's life and who now looks at him with those big eyes and that sweet smile that seems to charm everyone except me. Michael has the main deed in his hands, the deed to the house, the most important one. His fingers tremble slightly as he holds it. He looks for my eyes for a second, barely a second, and then looks away quickly, as if seeing me burns him. "Mom," he says finally, and his voice sounds too formal, too rehearsed. "We have reviewed all the documents with the attorney. Dad's inheritance, the assets that remained in your name after his death, need to be redistributed now that a prudent amount of time has passed." Redistributed, what a cold word. So bureaucratic. So convenient to avoid saying what he really means. Taking away what is mine. I remain silent. I do not say anything. I learned a long time ago that silence is more powerful than any scream. I stare at Michael, unblinking, without changing the expression on my face. He adjusts his shirt collar, uncomfortable. Jessica touches his arm, a small but calculated gesture, giving him courage. He takes a deep breath and continues. After discussing it with Jessica, and considering that she is now part of this family, and that we will soon be parents and will need a suitable space to raise our son, we have decided. He pauses. He swallows hard. We have decided that the main house, the downtown property, the land on the coast, and the investments Dad left, everything will be transferred to Jessica's name. The silence that follows is so thick I can feel it pressing against my chest. Someone coughs at the back of the room. A distant aunt lets out a stifled sigh. I can feel all the eyes moving between Michael, Jessica, and me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to explode, to scream, to cry, to beg. But I do none of that. I stay exactly where I am, with my hands crossed in my lap, my back straight against the chair, with the same calm expression I have maintained throughout this absurd meeting. Jessica smiles. It is a small smile, almost shy, but I see what is behind it. Triumph. Satisfaction. The smile of someone who just won something she did not earn, did not deserve, did not sweat or bleed to get. She was not here when I had to sell my jewelry to pay for my husband's chemotherapy. She was not here when I spent entire nights at the hospital, sleeping in a plastic chair because I could not leave him alone. She was not here when I had to learn how to manage the business accounts, to negotiate with vendors, to sign contracts I did not understand, but had to understand, because no one else would. She was not here for the burials, for the debts, for the early mornings crying alone in this same room, asking myself how I was going to keep going. Michael extends the papers toward Jessica. She takes them delicately, as if they were fragile, as if they were sacred. Her nails are perfectly painted a soft pink. She never worked with those hands. She never scrubbed floors. She never changed a sick person's sheets. She never held the hand of a dying man. And now those hands are holding the deed to my house, the house where I raised my son, the house where my husband died, the house I kept standing when everyone else left. "Do you have anything to say, Mom?" Michael asks, and there is something in his tone that bothers me deeply. It is not concern, it is impatience. He wants this to be over quickly. He wants me to accept it in silence. He wants me to make myself small and disappear so he can get on with his new life, his new wife, his new future. I stand up, slowly. My knees crack a little, but I do not care. I walk toward the table with firm steps, each one echoing against the hardwood floor that I have waxed every week for 10 years. Everyone is looking at me. I can feel the tension rising, the expectation growing. I put my hand in the pocket of my dress, that gray dress I wear for serious occasions, and I take out 2 things, First, the house keys. The keychain is old, silver metal, with a small photograph of my husband and me on our wedding day. I place them on the table with a sharp thud that makes the papers tremble. Then I take out the original deed, the one I have kept in my bedroom, the one I never gave to any lawyer because I knew this day would come. I put it next to the keys. "Congratulations," I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I expected. "Congratulations to you both." Michael blinks, confused. Jessica clutches the papers to her chest. No one moves, no one breathes. "She deserves it," Michael adds after a moment, and there is something defensive in his tone. "Jessica deserves to have a dignified life, a secure home, more than anyone in this family. She has given me more in 2 months than—" He does not finish the sentence, but he does not have to. "We all know how it ends. Than you have in 10 years. Than you have in your whole life. Than you ever did." I put my hand in my purse. It is an old brown leather bag, the same one I have carried for years. Everyone looks at me with renewed curiosity. I take out an envelope. It is not just any envelope. It is thick, manila-colored, with official stamps on the corners. A certified letter. I hold it for a moment, feeling its weight, feeling everything it contains, everything it means. Then I place it in the center of the table, right between the keys and the deeds. "This is for you, Michael," I say. "Open it when I am gone, or open it now, as you prefer. But open it." He looks at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. Jessica moves closer to him. Her smile is finally disappearing. There is something in her expression that gives me a small but deep satisfaction. Fear. Finally, a little bit of fear. "What is this?" Michael asks, but he does not touch it. "Open it, and you will know." He reaches out, slowly, and takes the envelope. His fingers are trembling more than before. He breaks the seal clumsily. He pulls the papers out from inside. There are several of them. Legal documents, certified copies, notary stamps, dates from years ago. He starts to read. At first, his expression is confused. Then he turns pale. Then it transforms into pure horror. "This cannot be true," he whispers, and his voice breaks completely. He turns white as a sheet. His hands are shaking so much the papers rustle. "Mom, this cannot be true." But it is true. It is all true. And now he knows. Now everyone is going to know. The papers fall from Michael's hands and scatter on the table like dead leaves. His face has lost all color. He looks like he is going to faint. Jessica clings to his arm, trying to see what those documents say. But he pushes her away with a sharp movement that makes her stumble. "What does it say?" she asks, and her shrill voice breaks the heavy silence of the room. "Michael, what do those papers say?" He does not answer. He just looks at me with eyes wide open, as if seeing me for the first time in his life, as if I were a stranger, as if he had just discovered that his mother is not who he thought she was. "Mom," he says finally, and his voice is barely a hoarse whisper. "This cannot be legal. It just can't be." I remain silent. I let the weight of his own words crush him. I let him feel what I felt when he distributed my entire life without asking me, without considering me, without looking me in the eye. Jessica finally manages to grab one of the papers. She reads it quickly, moving her lips as her eyes scan the lines. Suddenly, she stops. Her face changes. The sweet smile disappears completely. In its place appears something cold, something calculating. "You sold the house?" she says. "And it is not a question. It is an accusation. You sold the house 5 years ago." The murmur that runs through the room is like the buzzing of a beehive. Everyone starts talking at the same time. Questions, exclamations, insults. Uncle Robert jumps to his feet. Cousin Karen covers her mouth with her hands. Someone shouts that this is insanity. "Silence!" Michael screams, and his voice sounds so loud that everyone shuts up immediately. He grabs the papers furiously, crumpling them in his fists. "Mom, explain this to me. Explain it to me right now." "Explain?" I say, and my voice comes out colder than I intended. "Explain what? Exactly?" "Explain that when your father died and you disappeared for 3 years without showing any sign of life, I had to make decisions? Explain that while you were living your life in the city without sending a single dollar to help, I was here holding everything together? You had no right," he explodes. The veins in his neck are bulging. His face is red with fury. Those assets belong to the family. They were mine too. They were mine. I correct him. My voice does not shake. They were mine because your father left them to me. Because I was with him until his last breath. Because I signed as the sole legal heir when you did not even dignify us by showing up to his funeral. That hits him like a rock. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. Jessica looks at him with an expression I cannot decipher. Surprise? Disappointment? Rage? But you. Michael tries to speak, and his voice breaks. You told us everything was in order. You told us the inheritance was intact. You lied to us. I never lied to you, I reply. You assumed. You arrived here 2 months ago, after years of absence, and assumed that everything was the same. You assumed that I had kept everything untouched, waiting for you to come and claim it. You assumed that I had no brain and no will of my own. Uncle Robert approaches the table and grabs one of the papers. He is a big man, with a deep voice, always used to being obeyed. He reads quickly and then looks at me with fury. Eleanor, this is theft, he says with a hard voice. You stole your own son's inheritance. I did not steal anything that was not mine, I reply, without flinching. Every decision I made when I was the sole legal owner of those assets. When Michael was missing, when none of you lifted a finger to help me. But it was still his inheritance, shouts a voice from the back. It is Cousin Karen, always meddling where she is not called. You were the temporary guardian. You couldn't dispose of everything as if it were yours alone. I wasn't a guardian of anything, I say. And now I do raise my voice. Not much. Just enough so everyone shuts up and listens to me. I was the owner. Legal. Absolute. The documents do not lie. You can check them as many times as you want. Every signature is notarized. Every date is recorded. Every decision was made within the law. Jessica lets out a laugh. It is a strange laugh, almost hysterical. She steps away from Michael and walks around the table, looking at me with narrowed eyes. And where is the money? She asks with venom in her voice. If you sold the house, if you sold the properties, where is the money, mother dear? Mother dear. The words come out of her mouth like spit. That is none of your business, I answer. Of course it is my business, she screams, and now she loses her composure completely. I just married your son believing he had a secured future, believing this family had assets, and it turns out it was all a lie. Nobody forced you to marry him, I say, and my words fall like ice. Nobody put a gun to your head. You married Michael 2 months ago. 2 months. And you are already here, claiming inheritances as if you had been in this family for decades. She opens her mouth to answer, but Michael grabs her by the arm. Hard. Too hard. She winces in pain, but says nothing. Mom, Michael says. And now, his voice sounds different. It sounds dangerous. Tell me where the money is. Tell me what you did with everything. I did what I had to do, I reply. I paid debts you didn't know existed. I kept your father's business running for years. I paid lawyers to defend properties that were being claimed by scammers. I paid the hospital. I paid for the funeral. I paid for everything you never paid for. That doesn't take millions of dollars, he yells. The properties were worth over $2 million. Where is that money? $2 million. So you did investigate. So you did do the math. So you did know exactly how much everything was worth before coming to split it with your new wife. The money went where it had to go, I say. And the rest is mine. Legally mine. You have no right to claim anything. The silence that follows is absolute. I can hear the tick-tock of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, Michael's agitated breathing. Jessica breaks loose from my son's grip and walks toward me. She stops just inches from my face. I can smell her expensive perfume, see her perfectly applied makeup, notice the small tremor in her jaw. You are a bitter old woman, she says in a low voice filled with hate. A selfish old woman who cannot stand seeing her son happy. That is why you did this. That is why you destroyed us. I do not answer her. I just look at her. And in my eyes, she must see something that makes her step back. This conversation does not end here, Michael says. And his voice sounds like a threat. I am going to get lawyers. We are going to investigate every paper, every signature, every transaction. And if there is anything irregular, even a comma out of place, I am going to sue you. I am going to take every last cent from you. Do what you have to do, I say. And I take my purse, but do it from somewhere else. This house is no longer yours. It never was. I walk toward the door. My steps echo in the tense silence. No one stops me. No one says anything. When I reach the door, I stop. I turn around. I look at them all one last time. 10 years, I say. I was here alone for 10 years. And none of you asked if I needed help. If I was okay? If I had enough to eat? Now that there is nothing to take? Now you show up. Now you remember that I exist. I open the door and walk out. The afternoon sun hits me in the face. I take a deep breath. Behind me, I hear shouting. I hear Jessica crying. I hear Michael cursing. I hear Uncle Robert demanding explanations. But I keep walking, without looking back, without stopping, because this is just beginning. 10 years ago. 10 years that seem like a whole lifetime when I remember them now, walking down this empty street away from the house that is no longer mine. 10 years since the day everything changed. My husband died on a Tuesday, a gray Tuesday in November. He had been fighting cancer for 6 months and spent the last 30 days in a coma at the municipal hospital. I slept in a chair next to him every night. The nurses knew me by name. They brought me watered-down coffee in plastic cups and told me to go home and rest. But I couldn't. I couldn't leave him alone. Not after 40 years together. When his heart stopped, I was holding his hand. I felt his fingers get cold between mine. I felt everything we had built together vanish in that long, constant beep of the monitor. The doctor came in. He put a hand on my shoulder. He told me he was sorry, and I could only nod because the words wouldn't come out. I called Michael that same morning. I had to call 3 times before he answered. I heard music in the background, laughter, the noise of a city that wasn't this one. I told him his father had died. There was a long silence. Then I heard his voice, distant, as if he were talking to someone else. Then he came back to the phone and told me he would try to come, that he was in the middle of an important project in the capital, that he would call me later to coordinate. He did not come to the funeral. He called 2 days later. He told me he was very sorry, that he had a work emergency, that he would send money for the expenses. He never sent anything. It was me who paid for the coffin, me who chose the flowers, me who received the few relatives who showed up, me who stood by the grave while they lowered my husband into the earth. Alone. Completely alone. The first few months were the hardest. Not just because of the pain of the loss, although that pain was like a live animal inside my chest, tearing me apart every time I breathed. It was hard because I discovered I knew nothing. My husband had managed everything for 40 years. The accounts, the papers, the properties, the commercial rental business we had downtown. I cooked, cleaned, raised our son, but I had never gotten involved in the numbers. Suddenly I found myself sitting in front of a mountain of documents I didn't understand. Unpaid bills, back taxes, contracts expiring, tenants threatening to leave if I didn't fix the leaks, the broken doors, the old electrical wiring, and the bank. The bank called every 2 days asking about a loan I didn't know existed. $20,000 my husband had taken out to pay for medical treatment. $20,000 that I now had to pay back. I called Michael. I explained the situation to him. I told him I needed help, that I didn't understand how to handle all this, that please, come, even if just for a few days to help me get organized. He told me he was very busy, that he trusted I could handle it, that I should look for an accountant, that that's what everyone did. He sent me $500, just once. $500 that vanished in a week between the electric bill, water, and food. So I had to learn. Alone. At 59 years old, I had to sit at the dining room table with a notebook and an old calculator and learn to read bank statements, learn what a promissory note was, what a mortgage was, what a lease agreement was. I spent nights awake, my eyes burning from reading so much fine print on yellowed papers that smelled of mildew. I hired an accountant, an older man, Mr. Henderson, who had worked with my husband years ago. He was the one who explained the truth to me, the truth my husband had never told me, probably not to worry me. We were in debt, deeply in debt. The medical treatment had cost almost $100,000. Insurance had only covered a part, My husband had paid the rest by selling some investments and taking out loans. But that wasn't all. There were back taxes from 3 years ago, late fees, accumulated interest. In total, we owed close to $150,000 to different institutions. Mr. Henderson showed me the numbers on his computer. He explained that if I didn't pay soon, the bank could foreclose on the house. Creditors could seize the commercial properties. I could lose everything. "And what can I do?" I asked him, feeling panic squeeze my throat. "Sell," he told me with a serious voice. "You have to sell something. The properties are worth much more than the debts. If you sell the downtown commercial units, you can pay everything you owe and still have money left over." But I didn't want to sell. Those properties were my husband's legacy. They were what he had built his entire life to leave us a secure future, to leave Michael an inheritance. I called my son again. I explained the full situation. I told him we needed to make decisions together, that I needed him to come so we could sign papers, so we could decide what to sell and what to keep. "Mom, I trust you," he told me. "Do what you think is best. You know more about this than I do. But Michael, these are important decisions. It is your inheritance too. I can't go right now, really. I'm in the middle of a project that is going to change my life. There will be time later to look at all that. Meanwhile, you decide. You have my authorization." Authorization. As if I needed his permission to save what he had no interest in saving. So I decided alone. I sold the commercial units downtown. 3 units that rented well, but required constant maintenance and were generating more headaches than profits. I sold them for $800,000, less than what they were really worth. But I needed the money fast. With that money, I paid all the debts. The $150,000 disappeared in bank transfers and certified checks. $650,000 remained. Mr. Henderson advised me to invest them in something safe, in certificates of deposit, in government bonds, in things that generated interest without risk. But I was afraid of making another wrong decision, afraid of losing the little that was left. So I kept that money in a savings account and tried to live off the minimal interest it generated, supplementing it with the small pension I had left from my husband. The years passed, one after another, slow and lonely. I stayed in the house, that big house that suddenly seemed too empty. I kept keeping everything in order, cleaning rooms that no one used, cooking for one person, watching TV alone at night. Michael called every 3 or 4 months, short conversations, 5 minutes, 10 at the most. He asked me how I was. I told him I was fine. He told me he was busy, that work was going well, that he would come to visit me soon, but he never came. In those years I learned many things. I learned to change a fuse, to unclog a drain, to fix a leak. I learned to negotiate with the grocer to get a discount, to stretch money until the end of the month, to live with very little. I also learned about the law. I spent entire afternoons at the public library reading about inheritances, probate, wills. I talked to Mr. Teniers Henderson, who explained legal matters to me with grandfatherly patience. I learned that as a widow and direct heir, I had absolute rights over my husband's assets, that as long as I lived and didn't decide otherwise, those assets were mine to manage as I pleased. And I learned something more important. I learned that no one was going to take care of me but myself, that my son had made his life far away, and that I was just an annoying obligation in his busy schedule, that if something happened to me, if I got sick, if I needed help, I would be alone. So I started making different decisions, decisions no one knew about, decisions I was making in silence, at night, at that same dining table where today they distributed my life without asking me. Because I knew how to make plans too. I knew how to protect myself too. And when Michael finally appeared after years, when he arrived with his new girlfriend on his arm and his fake smile telling me that now he was going to stay close, that now we were going to be a family again, I already knew exactly what was going to happen, and I was already ready. Years 5, 6, and 7 were the worst. The years where I felt like I was becoming invisible, where every day was exactly the same as the one before. Waking up at 6 in the morning, making coffee for a single cup, sweeping the enormous house that didn't need to be so big anymore, washing dishes only I had used, watching the news on television while eating alone at the dining room table. The bills kept coming. Electricity, water, gas, phone, property tax, every month the same. I paid everything punctually, taking money out of that savings account that was shrinking little by little. Mr. Henderson visited me every 3 months to review the finances. He always told me the same thing. Eleanor, this money isn't going to last forever. You need to invest. You need it to work for you. But I was afraid of losing it all. That money was the only thing I had left from 40 years of marriage. The only thing that gave me security, so I just kept it, watching as the minimal interest barely covered inflation. In year 6, the house started to deteriorate. The roof had leaks. The pipes made strange noises. The paint was peeling off in chunks. I tried to fix what I could with my own hands, but there were things that needed professionals. I called a plumber for the pipes. He charged me $1,200. I called a roofer, another $1,500. Every repair was a piece of the money disappearing. I did the math in my old notebook, adding and subtracting, trying to calculate how much I had left, how much longer I could live like this. The numbers gave me vertigo. At this rate, in 10 years I would have nothing. I called Michael. Again. I explained that the house needed major repairs, that I was using my savings, but they were running out, that I needed help, even if it was a little money a month for expenses. Mom, you know if I had it I would send it to you, he told me. But right now I'm tight. I had to move to a more expensive apartment because the other one was in a dangerous area, and work isn't paying as well as before. Give me a few months and I'll send you something, I promise. He never sent anything. The months passed. The promises were carried away by the wind. It was in year 7 when something changed inside me. It was a common day, just any Wednesday. I was sitting in the living room, staring at the ceiling with the damp spots growing like maps of non-existent countries. I was 66 years old. I was tired. My knees hurt. My back hurt. Everything hurt. And suddenly I felt a rage I didn't know I had stored up. A cold, clear rage that rose from my stomach to my throat. Rage against my son, who had abandoned me. Rage against this world that makes old women invisible. Rage against myself for having waited so long for someone to come rescue me. No one was coming. No one was going to take care of me. No one was going to value these years of sacrifice. And if I died tomorrow, Michael would come to claim whatever was left without having lifted a finger to earn it. That night I called Mr. Henderson. I told him I needed to talk, that I needed to make changes, that I was ready to make different decisions. We met at his office the next day, a small place that smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. He was almost 70, but his mind was still sharp as a razor. He poured me tea in a chipped cup and asked me to tell him what I was thinking. I want to protect myself, I told him. I want to make sure that if something happens to me, if I get sick, if I need care, I have the means to pay for it. And I want to make sure no one can take what is mine. Mr. Henderson nodded slowly. He took out a notepad and started writing. Does your son know how much money you have? He asked me. Not exactly. He knows I sold the properties, but he doesn't know how much was left after paying the debts. He never asked. Good. That gives us room to maneuver. During the following weeks, Mr. Henderson explained options. Trusts, living donations, bulletproof wills, strategic sales. Every option had pros and cons. Legal consequences I needed to understand completely before making any decision. The most important thing, he told me one day, staring at me over his thick glasses, is that whatever you do it now. While you are in full possession of your mental faculties, while no one can question your capacity to decide. Because if you wait until you are sick or weak, someone can claim you weren't in a condition to make decisions and annul everything. Those words stuck with me. While you are in full possession of your faculties, while no one can question your capacity, now or never. I started working on something no one knew about. Every night, after watching the news, I sat at the dining table with all the papers. I reviewed documents, I read old contracts. I studied the house deeds, the notarial acts, the property records. I learned every legal detail, every clause, every word in fine print. I also started gathering money in ways no one would notice. I bought less at the supermarket. I turned off lights early. I stopped paying for cable. I canceled the landline. Every dollar saved I put in a separate account. I opened at another bank, an account no one knew about but me and Mr. Henderson. In year 8, something happened that confirmed I was doing the right thing. Michael called. It was a strange call. He sounded nervous. He spoke fast. He laughed at things that weren't funny. "Mom, I'm going to introduce you to someone," he told me. "I met a woman. Her name is Jessica. She is wonderful. I think she is the one." I was happy for him. Truly happy. After so many years alone, he deserved to find someone. I asked him how they met, how long they had been together, what she did. "We met about 6 months ago," he told me. "She works in real estate. She is very smart. Mom, you're going to see. I'm going to bring her soon, so you can meet her." 6 months. 6 months, and he was barely telling me. But well, it was his life. He wasn't a child anymore. "I'm glad, son, truly. When are you coming?" "Soon, Mom. Very soon. Actually, there is something I want to ask you. We are thinking of getting married. Nothing big. Something intimate. And we were thinking that maybe we could do it there, in the garden of the house. What do you say?" My house. He wanted to use my house for his wedding. After years without coming, now he wanted to use my house as a stage. "Of course, son," I told him. "Whenever you want." "Thanks, Mom. I knew I could count on you." Also, well, Jessica and I were talking, and we thought that after the wedding we could stay there with you for a few months, while we find a place in town, to be closer to you, you know? You've been alone for many years. There it was. The real reason. He wasn't coming for me. He was coming because he needed a place to stay for free. He was coming because he had done his math and realized I had a big, empty house. He was coming because now it was convenient for him. "Sure," I repeated, keeping my voice neutral. "Whenever you want." After hanging up, I sat in the living room, staring at the phone in my hand. Mr. Henderson was right. I needed to act now. Before Michael arrived, before he started poking his nose in my things, before he tried to take control of what was mine. That same week I sold the house. Not to just anyone. I sold it to a foundation that helps elderly women. An organization Mr. Henderson knew. I sold it for $300,000, less than its real value, but with a special condition in the contract. I could keep living there for the rest of my life, paying a symbolic rent of $100 a month. It was a legal arrangement, completely valid. The house was no longer mine, but I had a life estate, right to inhabit it. With that money, plus what was left of the savings, it added up to almost $900,000. Mr. Henderson helped me create a trust. The money would stay there, generating interest, untouchable by anyone except me. If I died, the money would go to charities. If I needed medical care, the trust would pay for everything. But no one, absolutely no one, could touch it. I signed all the papers with a steady hand. Every signature was a decision. Every decision was an act of survival. I was no longer the lost widow who didn't understand numbers. I was a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. And when Michael finally arrived 2 months later with Jessica on his arm, smiling, saying they came to stay a while, I welcomed them with kindness. I prepared their rooms. I cooked for them. I smiled at them. But inside, I already knew how this story would end. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. I heard the car stop in front of the house. I looked out the living room window and saw Michael get out of the driver's seat. He had changed. He was heavier, his hair had some gray. He wore glasses he didn't use before. On the other side of the car, she got out. Jessica. She was younger than I imagined. Maybe 35, 40 years old. Thin, tall, long dark hair perfectly styled. Expensive clothes, high heels, flawless makeup, a bright smile. The type of woman who knows she is beautiful and uses that beauty as a tool. I opened the door before they knocked. Michael hugged me, a quick, awkward hug, the kind given out of obligation. He smelled of expensive cologne and cigarettes. "Mom, this is Jessica," he said, and there was pride in his voice, pride in showing off his prize. Jessica extended her hand. Her grip was soft, almost weak. Her nails were perfectly manicured, painted a pale pink color. She smiled at me, showing very white teeth. "Mrs. Eleanor, what a pleasure to finally meet you," she said with a sweet voice. "Michael has told me so many things about you. Lie. I knew it immediately. Michael never talked about me. But I knew how to smile too. The pleasure is mine. Come in, daughter. Come in. You must be tired from the trip. I helped them with the suitcases. Too many suitcases for a visit of a few months. Jessica walked up the stairs, looking at everything with evaluating eyes. She touched the walls, observed the furniture, checked every corner as if she were doing a mental inventory. I prepared the guest room for them, the biggest one. I changed the sheets that same morning. I put fresh flowers on the nightstand, left clean towels folded on the bed. When they entered, Jessica looked around with an expression I couldn't entirely decipher. "It's cozy," she said, but the tone didn't sound like a compliment. That first night I cooked roast chicken with potatoes, Michael's favorite recipe when he was a child. I set the table with the good tablecloth, served wine in the crystal glasses I almost never used. I tried to make it feel like a celebration. During dinner, Jessica talked. She talked a lot. She talked about her job in real estate, how successful she was, the million-dollar properties she had sold, the important clients she had. Michael looked at her dazed, nodding at every word as if listening to divine revelations. "And now that we're getting married," Jessica said, taking a sip of wine, "we are looking to settle down in a quieter place. The capital is so chaotic. Here you can breathe peace." "And when will the wedding be?" I asked. "In 2 months," Michael answered. "That's why we wanted to come earlier, to organize everything, and so you and Jessica can get to know each other better, Mom." 2 months. He barely knew this woman for 2 months, and they were already getting married. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and kept eating. The following days were strange. Michael spent most of the time on his computer, making calls, attending virtual meetings. Jessica went out early and came back late. She said she was exploring the town, getting to know the areas, looking for business opportunities. But I noticed things. I noticed how Jessica checked the drawers when she thought I wasn't looking. I noticed how she opened closets, touched things, moved them around. I noticed how she asked casual questions about the house. How old was it? How much was it worth? Was there a mortgage? Was it in my name? Or were there other owners? I answered vaguely. Said I wasn't sure of the details, that my husband had handled all that I just lived here. Jessica smiled, but her eyes kept calculating. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after their arrival, Jessica and I were alone. Michael had gone out to do some banking. I was in the kitchen making dinner. Jessica came in and sat on one of the chairs, watching me. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said after a long silence. "Can I call you Mom?" The question took me by surprise. I looked at her. She had that sweet smile again. "Sure, if you want," I answered. "It's just, I lost my mother years ago, and Michael tells me you have been very lonely. I thought maybe we could support each other, be a real family." Her words sounded nice, but there was something underneath, something I didn't like. "That would be very nice, Jessica. Michael told me you were widowed many years ago. It must have been very hard." It was. And being left with all this responsibility, this huge house, the properties your husband left, it must be exhausting to manage everything alone at your age. There it was, the real conversation. "I've been managing," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Michael told me his dad had several businesses, commercial units, investments. Do you still have them? Do you manage them?" "Some things were sold to pay medical and funeral expenses," I replied. "But I'm fine. I don't need much to live." Jessica nodded slowly. Her eyes studied me. "I work in real estate. If you ever need help managing properties, selling something, doing legal paperwork, I can help you. Without charging you, of course. We are family. How kind of you. Actually," she continued, leaning forward, "I've been thinking. This house is very big for a single person. It must cost a lot to maintain. Utilities, repairs, cleaning. Have you thought about selling? You could buy something smaller, more manageable, and with what is left over, you could live very comfortably." There was the plan, as clear as water. She wanted me to sell. She wanted access to that money. "It's an idea," I said, without committing to anything. "But this house has many memories. I don't know if I could leave it." Jessica leaned back in the chair. Her smile remained, but something changed in her eyes. Disappointment, frustration. "Of course I understand. It was just a suggestion, so you would be more comfortable. Michael returned and the topic wasn't touched again. But I knew Jessica wasn't going to give up. She had come for something, and it wasn't just for love of my son. The weeks passed. The wedding was approaching. Jessica had taken control of the entire organization. She hired a catering service, rented chairs and tables, hired a photographer. She paid for everything, she said. I only had to lend the garden, but I also noticed how the dynamic in the house began to change. Jessica started giving orders. She moved furniture without asking, changed things around. One day I came to the living room and she had moved my husband's armchair, that chair where he sat to read the newspaper every afternoon. I moved it because the light comes in better there, she explained when I asked. It looks more modern like this, don't you think? I moved it back to its place that same night. When Jessica saw it the next day, she didn't say anything. But she looked at me in a different way, as if for the first time, she realized I wasn't going to be so easy to handle. Michael didn't notice anything, or didn't want to notice. He was happy, talked about future plans, about the children they were going to have, about the life they were going to build. He talked as if this house were his, as if this town were his, as if I were just a temporary piece on his board. One night, 2 weeks before the wedding, I heard voices in their room, raised voices, an argument. I approached without making noise. I didn't want to listen, but I couldn't avoid it either. I told you to ask, Jessica was saying with a tense voice. I need to know exactly what she has, what properties, how much money, everything. I already told you I don't know, Michael answered. My mom never talks about that. She has always been reserved with money matters. Well, find out. Search for papers. Check her things when she's not there. Something. I can't do that, Jessica. She's my mother. Your mother, who has a house worth over $500,000 and who lives as if she had nothing. Your mother, who supposedly sold properties for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where is that money, Michael? Doesn't it seem strange to you? Maybe she spent it. My dad's debts were big. Or maybe she has it saved. And maybe you should make sure that when she is no longer here, that money goes where it should go. To you. To us. Silence. Then Michael's voice. Lower. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you talk to her. Make her understand that you are her only son, that you are her heir, that it would be good if things were clear starting now. Documents, wills, whatever is necessary. I walked away before hearing more. I went back to my room with my heart beating fast. Not from fear, from confirmation. Now I knew exactly who Jessica was. Now I knew exactly what she had come looking for. And I already knew exactly how this would end. The wedding was a sunny Saturday. The garden was full of people I didn't know. Friends of Jessica, I was told. Colleagues from Michael's work. Some distant cousins who appeared because there was a wedding and free food. I sat in the front row, wearing a beige dress I bought especially for the occasion, smiling while my son said his vows to a woman he barely knew. Jessica was beautiful. I had to admit it. A tight white dress that cost, I heard, $3,000. Professional makeup. Elaborate hairstyle. She looked like she stepped out of a magazine, and Michael looked at her as if she were the best thing that had happened in his life. After the ceremony, there was a party. Music, dancing, abundant food, wine flowing non-stop. I stayed seated in my chair, receiving congratulations from people I wouldn't see again. Everyone told me the same thing. What a lovely couple. How lucky your son is. What a beautiful daughter-in-law you got. I nodded and smiled until my cheeks hurt. At one point, Jessica approached me. She was a little tipsy. Her cheeks were red. She took my hands and looked at me with bright eyes. Thank you, Mama Eleanor, she told me. Thank you for lending us your house, for welcoming me, for everything. You have nothing to thank me for, I answered. Now we are real family, she continued, and I am going to take very good care of Michael. And of you too, you'll see. Everything is going to be different now. She didn't know how right she was. Everything was going to be different, but not in the way she expected. The days after the wedding were strange. Michael and Jessica went on their honeymoon to the beach for a week. I stayed alone in the house again, cleaning the remains of the party, picking up forgotten glasses, plastic cups in the garden, dirty napkins under the chairs. While I cleaned, I thought about how I had reached this point, how my life had been reduced to being the hostess of others' happiness, to opening my house, my space, my life, so others could come and take what they wanted. When they returned from the honeymoon, something had changed. Jessica was no longer the polite guest. She was the owner. She started reorganizing the kitchen without asking, moved my pots to places where I couldn't find them, changed the tablecloths, brought her own plates, and put them on the main shelf, relegating mine to the bottom drawers. It's just that these are more modern. Mom, she explained when I said something. The house looks better this way. Michael said nothing. He spent most of the time working on his computer in the living room. When I entered, he closed screens quickly. When I asked questions about what he was doing, he answered with vague things. Projects, meetings, work stuff. Jessica also started bringing people to the house, friends of hers who came to drink coffee in the afternoons. They sat in my living room, using my cups, laughing loudly, talking about things I didn't understand. When I passed by, they lowered their voices. When I left, the laughter returned. One day, I heard one of them say, "And the mother-in-law says nothing?" And Jessica's response, "She's from another generation. She doesn't understand how things work now. But she is harmless, harmless." That word stuck with me. Weeks passed, and the situation worsened. Jessica started making bigger changes. She hired someone to prune the garden, gave him specific instructions. When I saw the result, I almost cried. They had cut down the rose bush my husband planted the day Michael was born. 30-something years growing, and now it was just a stump. It was very old, Jessica told me when I complained. It was sick. The gardener said it was better to remove it before it infected the other plants. Lie. That rose bush was perfectly healthy. But there was nothing to do now. It was dead. She also started meddling in my routines. I had a habit of watching the news at 7 p.m. It was my moment. My only company, but Jessica started arriving right at that time and changing the channel. Soap operas, gossip shows, things she liked. When I protested, she said, "Oh, Mom, the news is so depressing. Watch this instead. It's more entertaining." And Michael, sitting next to her, said nothing, just looked at his phone. One day, Jessica entered my room. Without knocking, just opened the door and walked in. I was sitting on my bed reading. "Mom, I need to talk to you," she said, closing the door behind her. "Tell me." She sat on the edge of the bed. She had that serious expression she used when she wanted to appear concerned. "Michael and I have been talking, and well, we are thinking about having a baby soon. It's just that we aren't so young anymore, and we want to start our family." "How nice," I said, not knowing where this was going. "The issue is that we are going to need more space. This guest room is very small for the three of us, and we thought that maybe you could move to the room downstairs, the one next to the kitchen. It's smaller but more comfortable for you. You don't have to climb stairs. And we could use the master bedroom, the one that was yours and your husband's." I stayed silent, looking at her, processing what she just said. She wanted my room, the room where I slept for 40 years with my husband, the room where he died, where his things were still in the closet, where I felt close to him at night when I couldn't sleep. "No," I said simply. Jessica blinked. She didn't expect that answer. "Mom, be reasonable. We are young. We are going to have a baby. We need the space. You don't need such a big room. It is my room," I said, keeping my voice firm. "And I am not going to move." Jessica pursed her lips. She stood up. "I'm going to talk to Michael," she said, and left, slamming the door. That night there was another argument in their room. Raised voices, Jessica crying, Michael trying to calm her down, then footsteps going down the stairs, a knock on my door. "Mom, can I come in?" "Come in." Michael entered. He looked tired, had dark circles under his eyes. He had let his beard grow and it looked bad. "Mom, Jessica told me what you talked about." "Yes. Look, I know it's your room, but think about it. The one downstairs is more comfortable for you. You don't have to climb stairs every day. And we really need more space. We are going to be parents. Then look for your own house," I said. Michael was surprised. I had never spoken to him like that. "What?" I said. "Look for your own house. If you need more space, if you are going to have a baby, get your own place. This is my house. Mom, don't be like that. You know we are saving to buy something, but that takes time. Meanwhile, we need to be here. You can be here, but in the guest room. I am not moving from my room." Michael stood there, moving his jaw. I could see he was angry, that he wanted to say something else. But he held back. "Fine," he said finally. "As you wish." He left, closing the door harder than necessary. From that day on, everything changed again. Jessica stopped talking to me directly. She ignored me. When I entered a room, she left. When I spoke, she looked the other way. Michael tried to keep the peace, but it was obvious he was on his wife's side. They started doing things behind my back. They moved my things. My books disappeared from the living room. My photographs on the main cabinet were replaced by photos of the two of them. My wedding album ended up in a box in the garage. One day I arrived, and they had changed the lock on the front door. When I asked why, Michael told me the old one was broken. He gave me a copy of the new key, but I noticed that he and Jessica entered and left without using a key. They had some kind of digital system I didn't understand. They were pushing me out of my own house, little by little, with small actions that individually seemed harmless, but together formed a clear pattern. One afternoon, looking for a document in the study, I found papers. Papers that shouldn't be there. They were printouts of internet searches. How to declare an older adult incompetent, rights of heirs over properties, legal guardianship of elderly parents. I felt the floor move under my feet. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. They were planning something legal, something that would take away control of my own life. That night I called Mr. Henderson from my room, with the door locked, speaking in a low voice. "Mr. Henderson, I need you to verify that all the papers are in order, that there is no way anyone can question the decisions we made, that everything is bulletproof." "Something happened, Eleanor?" "It is happening, and it is going to get worse. I need to be sure that when the time comes, they can't do anything. Everything is in order. I checked it 3 times, but if you want, we can do one more review, and we can prepare some additional things. Just in case. Do it, please." That week, while Michael and Jessica went out shopping, Mr. Henderson came to the house. He brought more papers, more documents, certified copies of everything, wills, trusts, contracts, everything I would need when the time came to defend what was mine. "When do you think this is going to explode?" he asked me before leaving. "Soon," I told him. "Very soon. They are impatient. They want quick results. Are you ready?" I looked at the documents in my hands. Years of silent work, years of preparation, years of decisions made in the dark while everyone thought I was just a confused old lady. "I'm ready," I answered. And it was true. I was completely ready. The following months were a silent war, a war they didn't know they were losing since before it started. While Jessica and Michael continued with their plans, with their small daily humiliations, with their attempts to make me feel invisible in my own house, I worked at night. Every night, after they locked themselves in their room, I went down to the kitchen. I made myself tea, took out my folder of documents from the secret place where I kept it, behind the old cookbooks no one ever touched, and I sat at the dining table to review every paper, every number, every date. Mr. Henderson had helped me organize everything meticulously. We had copies of everything. The deed of sale of the house to the foundation, with the life estate clause that allowed me to keep living here. The documents of the trust where the money was, untouchable by anyone but me. The notarial acts of every transaction. The receipts for every payment. Everything certified, everything legal, everything bulletproof. But in addition, I had started documenting other things. Every time Jessica moved something of mine without permission, I wrote it down. Date, time, what she had moved. Every time they changed something in the house, I photographed it before and after. Every conversation where they ignored me, where they belittled me, where they treated me like old furniture, I wrote it in my notebook with all the details. I didn't know if I would need these proofs one day, but I had them, just in case. One night, while reviewing the papers, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, I put everything in the folder and hid it under a newspaper. Jessica appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was wearing an expensive silk robe. She looked surprised to see me there. "Can't sleep?" she asked, with a tone that pretended to be kind, but wasn't. "Sometimes I struggle," I answered. "Age." She approached the refrigerator, took out a bottle of water, observed me sideways while drinking. "What were you reading?" she asked, pointing to the newspaper. "Nothing important, the usual news." Jessica nodded slowly. She stood there, as if waiting for me to leave first. But I didn't move. This was my house, my kitchen. I wasn't going to leave because she wanted me to. Finally, it was she who left, going up the stairs with steps that sounded annoyed. Weeks passed. Jessica announced she was pregnant. 3 months along. She said it during dinner, with a huge smile, holding Michael's hand. He looked happy, genuinely happy. I congratulated them, told them I was happy for them. And it was true, in a way. A baby was innocent. It had no fault in any of this. But I also knew this would accelerate things. A baby meant more pressure, more urgency, more need for space, for money, for control. And I wasn't wrong. 2 weeks after the announcement, Michael arrived with a man, a lawyer, as I was introduced. Mr. Reynolds, a young guy, dark suit, leather briefcase, professional smile. "Mom, Mr. Reynolds is going to help us organize some legal matters for the family," Michael told me. "Things we should have organized a long time ago. Wills, documents, those things." "What things specifically?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat, took some papers out of his briefcase. "Missus, Eleanor, I understand you are a widow and hold some assets. It is important that those assets are correctly documented and that there is clarity about what will happen with them in the future. It is something every responsible family must do." "I already have a will," I said. Michael blinked. He didn't expect that answer. "When did you make it?" he asked. "Years ago, when your father died. And can I see it?" "It is a private document, Michael. When I die, it will be executed. Meanwhile, it is my business." Jessica, who was sitting on the sofa, leaned forward. "Mama Eleanor, we aren't trying to meddle in your things. We just want to make sure everything is in order, for your own good. At your age, these things are important. At my age, as if being 69 made me incompetent." "Everything is in order," I replied. "I have my will. I have my documents. Everything is where it should be." Mr. Reynolds exchanged a look with Michael. "Ma'am, could you at least tell us what that will includes? What properties do you have registered? It is important for tax issues, for future inheritance?" "No," I said simply. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Michael stood up. "Mom, you are being difficult. We just want to help you. I don't need help, and I am not going to discuss my private affairs with a stranger." Mr. Reynolds gathered his papers with a tense gesture, said goodbye politely and left. Michael walked him to the door. When he returned, his face was red with fury. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted at me. "Why do you do this to us? We just wanted to help you get organized. At your age, you should be grateful that we worry." "I didn't ask for your worry," I replied, keeping the calm I knew would infuriate him more. "And I don't need a lawyer. I don't know reviewing my things. Those things are mine too," he exploded. "I am your only son. I am your heir. I have a right to know what there is." "You have no right while I am alive," I said, and my voice came out cold as ice. "Nothing I have is yours until I die, and it seems some are in a big hurry for that to happen." Jessica jumped to her feet. "How dare you insinuate that? We have taken care of you. We have given you company, and you pay us with mistrust and selfishness." "You haven't taken care of me," I responded, feeling the rage I had stored for months starting to rise. "You moved into my house without paying rent. You eat my food. You use my utilities. You have changed everything to your liking. You have pushed me out of my own spaces, and now you want my papers, my documents, my information. That is not caring. That is invading." Michael took a step toward me. There was something in his eyes I had never seen, something dark. "You are right about one thing," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "This is your house. For now. But when you are gone, everything will be mine. And I am going to do whatever I want with everything. So you better start treating us with respect." I stood looking at him. At this man who had been my baby, whom I had carried, fed, raised, loved, and who was now threatening me. In my own house. "Get out of here," I said. What? Get out of my house now. Jessica let out an incredulous laugh. You can't kick us out. We are your family. This is also our house. This house is mine, and I am asking you to leave. Michael shook his head. We aren't going anywhere, Mom. And if you continue with this attitude, we are going to have to take measures, legal measures, because it is clear you are no longer in a condition to make rational decisions. There it was. The real threat, the one I had seen coming for months. They wanted to declare me incompetent. They wanted to take away control of my own decisions. Do what you have to do, I said. And I went up to my room. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed sitting on my bed, with the folder of documents in my lap, reviewing every paper one more time, making sure everything was perfect, that when the moment came, there wouldn't be a single mistake they could use against me. The next morning, I called Mr. Henderson. The time has come, I told him. I need us to prepare everything for the meeting. The final meeting? The final meeting. Are you sure? Completely sure. When? In 2 weeks. I want everyone present, everyone who has been waiting for me to die, to divide up what they think is theirs. Mr. Henderson sighed. It's going to be hard, Eleanor. I know, but it is necessary. I need to finish this. I need them to know I am not the foolish old woman they think I am. You never have been. I hung up and started making calls. To Uncle Robert, to Cousin Karen, to all the relatives who had appeared at the wedding. Everyone who had been murmuring in the corners, everyone who had been waiting for their piece of the pie. I told them I was going to hold a family meeting, that I was going to clarify the issue of the inheritance, that everyone should be present. No one turned down the invitation. Of course not. Everyone wanted to be there when the money was distributed. During those 2 weeks, the tension in the house was unbearable. Jessica and Michael barely spoke to me. I passed most of the time in my room. Ate alone. Watched TV alone. But I wasn't sad. I was focused. I was prepared. The night before the meeting, I took my best gray dress out of the closet, ironed it carefully, prepared my purse with everything I would need, the documents in the certified envelope, the keys, the deeds, everything I had worked on in silence for years. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was 69 years old, wrinkles around the eyes, gray hair I no longer bothered to dye, hands with age spots, but my eyes were clear, firm, full of determination. Tomorrow everything would end. Tomorrow they would know the truth, and there would be no turning back. I slept deeply that night. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares, because I knew that the next day, finally, I was going to reclaim my dignity. The day arrived. Saturday afternoon, the same living room where all this had started, the same dining table covered in papers, but now I knew exactly what was in those papers, and they were about to discover it. Everyone arrived on time. Uncle Robert with his wife, Cousin Karen with her husband, some more cousins I barely knew, but who had appeared when they smelled money. Mr. Reynolds, invited by Michael, with his briefcase and professional expression, and, of course, Michael and Jessica, seated in the main chairs as if they were the owners of the place. Jessica looked triumphant. She wore an expensive, new dress. Her pregnancy bump barely showed. She had her hair perfectly styled, and that smile I knew so well, the smile of someone who believes they already won. Michael had prepared everything. He had printed documents, had organized the deeds he believed existed, had made a list of assets he thought were going to be distributed. He was so sure of himself, so confident. I sat in my usual chair, with my gray dress, with my purse in my lap, in silence, waiting. Michael stood up, cleared his throat. Everyone fell silent and looked at him. Well, family, thank you for coming. As you know, Mom is at an age where it is important to have things clear. The properties, the inheritances, everything my father left. Today we are going to organize it all officially, with Mr. Reynolds present, so that everything is legally documented. Looks of approval around the table. Uncle Robert nodded with satisfaction. Cousin Karen smiled, everyone waiting for their share. After reviewing the situation, Michael continued, and considering that Jessica and I are going to have a son, that we are young and have significant expenses ahead, We have decided that it is only fair that the main assets are transferred to our name: the house, the remaining properties, the accounts. Mom, of course, will have a guaranteed place to live and a monthly allowance that we will provide for her. An allowance. He was going to give me an allowance, with my own money. Jessica took the floor. She stood up, a hand on her belly in a calculatedly maternal gesture. Mama Eleanor, I know this might be difficult to understand, but it is for your own good. At your age, managing properties and money is stressful. We are going to take care of everything. You just have to enjoy your golden years without worries. Uncle Robert spoke then. It seems fair, Eleanor. You have done your part. Now it is time for you to rest and let the young people manage things. Besides, a grandchild on the way. You have to think about your grandchild. Everyone nodded. Everyone agreed. Everyone ready to approve the dispossession. Mr. Reynolds took documents out of his briefcase. Mrs. Eleanor, I have the transfer papers prepared here. We just need you to indicate exactly what properties you have, in which banks you have accounts, and we will proceed to make the orderly transfer. All legal. All correct. They looked at me, everyone, waiting for me to speak, waiting for me to surrender, waiting for me to hand over everything, without a fight. I opened my purse, slowly, took out the house keys, the old keychain with my wedding photo. I put them on the table with a sharp thud that made Jessica jump. Congratulations, I said, with a clear and firm voice. Congratulations to you both. Confusion on their faces. Michael frowned. Mom? I took out the deed then. The original one, the one I had kept. I put it next to the keys. The house, I said. Here is the deed to the house. Jessica leaned in to see it. Her eyes scanned the document. Suddenly her expression changed. The smile disappeared. This says the house was sold, she said with a shrill voice. Sold? To a foundation? The murmur ran through the room like electricity. Michael grabbed the paper. What is this, Mom? You sold the house? 5 years ago, I answered calmly. When your father's debts threatened to take it from us, I sold it to save it. With a life estate clause. I can live here until I die. Afterward, the house passes completely to the foundation. That can't be legal, shouted Jessica. That house belonged to the husband. It was family inheritance. It was mine, I corrected. Your father-in-law left it to me, legally, and I did with it what I needed to do. Mr. Reynolds took the document. Read it carefully. His expression became serious. It is legal, he said finally. Completely legal. The sale is certified. The life estate clause is correctly drafted. There is nothing to contest here. Michael turned pale, looked at Jessica, then looked at me. And the other properties? The commercial units? Sold too. Years ago. To pay the debts your father left. Debts you didn't know existed because you never asked. And the money? Demanded Jessica, her voice rising in volume. If you sold everything, where is the money? I took out the certified envelope, the last document, the most important one. I put it in the center of the table. Open it, I told Michael. There is your answer. He took it with trembling hands, broke the seal, took out the papers, started to read. His face went from pale to red, then to ash. His hands were shaking so much the papers rustled. This cannot be true, he whispered. Mom, this cannot be true. What does it say? Demanded Jessica, snatching the papers from him. She read them quickly. Her eyes widened. You sold everything, and put the money in a trust, an irrevocable trust, I added, managed by a bank, untouchable. The money is there for my medical expenses, my future care, my maintenance. When I die, whatever is left is donated to charities. There is no inheritance. There is nothing to split. The silence was absolute. I could hear the clock ticking, Jessica's agitated breathing. My heart beat strong but steady. This was what I had waited for, what I had planned. Michael stood up so fast, his chair fell to the floor with a crash. You robbed us, he screamed. You robbed your own family. Those assets were for me. I am your son. Those assets were mine, I responded, without raising my voice. Mine to do with them what I decided. And I decided to protect myself, because I knew this was going to happen. I knew you would come. after years of absence, to claim what you never earned. Jessica started to cry, but they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of rage. "I married you believing you had a future?" she yelled at Michael. "Believing you would inherit something, and it turns out there is nothing. Your mother deceived us all." "No one deceived you," I said. "You assumed. You came with your plans, with your lawyer, with your ideas of dividing up my life. But you never asked. You were never interested in knowing the truth. You only wanted what you thought belonged to you." Uncle Robert pounded the table with his fist. "This is abuse. Eleanor, you acted behind the whole family's back. Those assets should have been consulted with everyone." "I didn't have to consult anything with anyone," I replied, staring at him. "When my husband was dying, where were you, Robert? When did you come to help? When did you offer money for treatments? Never. None of you were here." Cousin Karen stood up. "But we are family. We had a right to know, to be considered. Family are the ones who are there in good times and bad," I said, feeling the contained rage of years starting to come out. "Family are the ones who ask how you are, not just how much you have. You only appeared when you smelled money, when there was a wedding, when there was something to gain. Where were you when I was alone, scared, trying to understand bills and debts? Where were you when I had to sell my jewelry to pay for medicine? Nobody. There was nobody." Jessica wiped her tears furiously. "You are a bitter and selfish old woman," she spat. "A witch who can't stand seeing her son happy. That's why you did this, to ruin us." I stood up, slowly, looking her directly in the eye. "I didn't ruin anything. You came to live in my house without paying, ate my food, used my utilities, pushed me out of my spaces, treated me like old furniture, brought lawyers to take control of my life from me. And now that you discover there is nothing to steal, I am the villain." Michael had tears in his eyes. But they weren't tears of regret. "I hate you," he said with a broken voice. "I hate you for this." His words hurt me. I won't lie. They hurt deeply. But I didn't change my expression. "You can hate me all you want," I said. "But you aren't going to take what is mine. You aren't going to leave me with nothing, because I protected myself. Because I learned that no one was going to protect me, except myself." I took my purse, looked at everyone present. Faces of shock, of fury, of disbelief. "You have 1 week to get out of this house," I told Michael and Jessica. "Find somewhere to live, because this ends here, today." "We can't leave," shouted Jessica. "I am pregnant." "We don't have money saved." "You should have thought about that before," I answered, and I walked toward the door. Behind me, chaos erupted. Screams, accusations, Jessica crying hysterically, Uncle Robert demanding explanations, Cousin Karen calling me a thief, Michael shouting that this wouldn't stay like this. But I kept walking. I left the house, breathed the fresh afternoon air, and for the first time in years, I felt something resembling peace. 6 months later. 6 months since that afternoon when Michael and Jessica's world collapsed before their eyes. 6 months since I pronounced the words that changed everything forever. I am sitting in the small apartment I rented in the center of town. It is modest. 2 bedrooms, small kitchen, living room with a window facing the main street. I don't need more. Here there are no painful memories. Here there are no ghosts of the past. Here I can breathe. The big house I left. I exercised my right to renounce the life estate. The foundation took full possession, and now they use it as a temporary shelter for vulnerable older women. Sometimes I pass by and see movement, laughter, life. I like to think my house now serves for something good, something my husband would have approved. The trust remains intact. It generates enough interest for me to live comfortably. I pay my rent, buy my food, go to the doctor when I need to. I lack nothing, and the best part? No one can touch that money. It is protected, just like I wanted. Mr. Henderson visits me every month. We drink coffee in the small cafe on the corner, review the statements. He confirms everything is in order, that the money is safe, that when I am no longer here, it will be distributed among the institutions we chose. Women's shelters, nursing homes, scholarships for widows. My money will help people who really need it. "Have you heard anything from Michael?" Mr. Henderson asked me last week. "No," I answered. "Nothing, and it is fine like that. But I do know things. In a small town, news travels. I know Michael and Jessica had to move to a tiny apartment on the outskirts. I know Jessica left her real estate job because no one wanted to work with her after the scandal. I know Michael is working 2 jobs to pay the bills. I know they argue a lot, that the relationship is broken. I know Jessica had her baby 3 months ago. A girl. I haven't met her. They didn't invite me. I didn't expect them to. I also know Uncle Robert and several cousins tried to sue me. They claimed I had committed fraud, that I had hidden assets, that I wasn't in my right mind when I made the decisions. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson hired, destroyed every one of their arguments. All documents were perfect. All dates correct. All signatures certified. All decisions made when I was in full possession of my faculties. They had nothing. The judge dismissed the case at the first hearing. After that, they stopped looking for me. I guess they finally understood there was nothing to do, that I had won, or rather, that I had protected myself from people who only wanted me for what they could get. I spend my afternoons reading. I bought books I always wanted to read but never had time for. I watch the news without anyone changing the channel. I cook for myself, small portions, meals I like. I go for walks in the park. I have made some friends. Other women my age? Widows too. We get together on Thursdays to knit and talk. They know my story. They understand me. Several went through similar things. Sometimes, at night, I think of Michael, of the boy he was, of the baby I held, of the son I thought I would have by my side always, and I feel sadness, a deep and heavy sadness, because I lost my son, because he chose a woman who manipulated him, because his greed was stronger than his love. But I don't regret it. Not for a single second do I regret what I did, because I learned something fundamental in these years of loneliness. That love is not enough. That being a mother doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. That you have a right to protect yourself. That your life, your work, your decisions have value. Even if you are old, even if you are a woman, even if you are a mother. I learned that family is not just blood. It is respect. It is presence. It is genuine concern. And the people who showed up only when there was something to gain were not family. They were vultures. I learned that it is okay to be strong, that it is okay to say no, that it is okay to set boundaries, that it is okay to protect what is yours, even if that means ending up alone. Because I was alone anyway. I was alone for 10 years while everyone lived their lives. The difference now is that I am alone by choice. I am alone with dignity. I am alone, but at peace. This morning, while drinking coffee in my small kitchen, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there was an envelope. No return address. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Michael's baby, my granddaughter. Beautiful, with big eyes. On the back, in Michael's handwriting, it said only, "Her name is Eleanor." I stood looking at that photograph for a long time. I felt something move in my chest, something between pain and hope. Maybe one day Michael will understand. Maybe one day he will realize that I didn't take anything from him, that I only protected myself from being stripped bare. Maybe one day he will come to ask for forgiveness, or maybe not. Maybe this is all that remains. A photograph, a name, a granddaughter I will never know, and I will have to live with that, as I have lived with so many other losses, with my husband's death, with my son's absence, with my family's betrayal. I put the photograph on my nightstand, next to my wedding photo, next to the photo of Michael when he was a boy. Because even though they hurt me, even though they betrayed me, they are still part of my story. But they are no longer my present, and they definitely do not control my future. I look at myself in the mirror, 70 years old just turned, deep wrinkles, completely white hair, hands stained by time, but clear eyes, straight back, dignity intact. I survived. I didn't just survive. I won. I reclaimed my life. I reclaimed my power. I reclaimed my voice. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Because in the end, the only person who saved me was myself. And that is a lesson I learned late, but that I will never forget. I go out to my small balcony. The sun is going down. The town looks quiet from here. I hear the church bells, the noise of cars passing. Life goes on, and I go on too, stronger, wiser, freer, because this is my story, and I wrote the ending.